Today, presented by Hotels.com.
Welcome to NBA Today, presented by Hotels.com. I'm Malika Andrews, and anyone who watches this show on a regular basis, you know that one of my rules is unless there is news surrounding a team, we only talk about the teams that are still playing. The 76ers, they are no longer one of those teams. But I'm going to put a little caveat on my rule because today is our day that we're going to put a bow on their season. And over the next 15 minutes, just 15 minutes, we'll get to the team still playing. We're going to ask 3 pressing questions surrounding Philadelphia. So one of those questions is with Joel Embiid. That's where we need to start. Another season that ended with an early playoff exit. So what exactly do the Sixers need to do this offseason to keep Joel Embiid happy before the process runs out in Philadelphia, right? So what did the loss to the Heat mean for Doc Rivers' future? That's question number 2. The Philly faithful, they're starting to turn up the heat on Doc's seat. So will he make it to his 3rd season with the 76ers? And a question that I've asked, I truly think no less than 100 billion times on this show. What's next for James Harden and his extension? Daryl Morey addressed that very question moments ago.
Look, James is a great player. I don't think we need to get it. He has the ability to score, pass. I'm excited for Doc and his staff to have a whole offseason, work with the players versus, obviously, because of our circumstances, having it all come together in February makes it very difficult. I mean,
we also made a trade, guys, this year that, once you make that trade, you add the talent, but then, 3 goes out, 1 goes, it does hurt your bench a little bit. And we understood that when we did it, but we thought it was the right thing to do for the long term.
So Harden's eligible to sign the largest contract in NBA history, $270 million over 5 years this offseason from the 76ers. But according to our Bobby Marks, a 5-year, $150 million contract with partial guarantees in year 5, that could make a little bit more sense for both sides. Harden would make less than his $47.4 million player option in year 1, but he'd guarantee himself an additional $71 million overall in the first 4 years of that deal. All right, everyone with me, joined on set here by current Timberwolves player, Timberwolf, Patrick Beverly, Pat Bev. We have Matt Barnes and senior writer Ramona Shelburne. Kendrick Perkins is going to be by shortly. But Ramona, nobody explains this Harden situation better than you. What are you hearing as the next step in this process?
Well, the first step here is he's got a player option June 29th.
Right.
$47.4 million. Pat, that's 1 year. 1 year. That's like a whole contract, right?
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah.
Okay, $47.4 million by June 29th. But my expectation is that the Sixers go to him and say, hey, that's a lot of money, and obviously to get the 270, you have to pick up the player option, and then they do an extension off of that. But from where he is in his career, and also based on what he said last night. He said, I'll work with the team and I'll do whatever it takes to build a team that can win here. There are some very creative options that they can play with. If he does not pick up that player option, there is they can do a deal that's more like 4 for $120, which is still $30 million a year, or what Bobby suggested. But there is an option, Malika, and they'd have to get creative, but there's an option where they could create a second or third max slot deal. If he were willing to work with them on a much shorter or less expensive deal. It would also involve a trade of Tobias Harris in that spot. But there's an option where you could bring a third star to Philly.
Right.
If James Harden was truly willing to work with them in the way that he said last night.
So there's so many options that are on the table. And Pat, you and James were teammates for a long time. What do you think the best step forward is for James and for the 76ers here?
You got to let us see it through. I believe you have to let us see it through. As far as money-wise, you get a boy whatever he's asking for. Unfortunately, it might sound kind of crazy, but there's no one in the league that can kind of do what he can do still at this time right now. So you pay him, you give Doc, give Doc a chance to do his thing against a healthy team upcoming this year. Maybe you get a couple more pieces, maybe a defender here, maybe a pit bull dog type of guy this offseason, and see where the dominoes fall at the end of that year.
What do you think, Matt?
I've been a big fan of James. This whole playoff series, I've been holding out for that one game that we're going to see James come back to being James, and I don't think he did. To me, I think you got to play the creative side. I think that Max, with all due respect, the way he's kind of come downhill just off maybe 2 years ago. Shannon Sharp said something crazy. I laughed, but he said it seems like James is aging in dog years. 1 year is 7 years, so I don't want to take it that far. But there has been partly because he set the bar so high. This guy is a 34, 12, and 8 guy just 2 years ago. You know what I mean? So for him, he's still at like 19, 9, and 7, which are crazy numbers still. So as far as superstar being able to carry a team, I don't know if he's there, but I do believe that they need to run it back. I do believe with those two and a possibility of adding one more max through creativity and surrounding them with some shooters, they still have something there.
All right, I want to bring Big Perk into this conversation. Kendrick, what is your message to James Harden?
What is my message to James Harden? It's 2 words: trust and loyalty. Okay, and the trust is that he's going to make sure he do everything that he needs to do this offseason to come back in tip-top shape, to come back ready. And I'm not saying the James Harden that we saw with the Houston Rockets, but at least come back a tier under that, okay? And then when I talk about the loyalty part of it, don't need you coming in backstabbing Doc. Don't need you going to Daryl Morey. Don't need the whispers behind Doc Rivers' back. Doc Rivers needs to be able to coach with a clear head, knowing that his team, including James Harden, is all the way in. The fact that they had a players' meeting today spoke volumes about everything that's going on, and they're going to bring Doc back next year. So that goes to show me that it's already talks in the works. And at the end of the day, this is not James' team. This is Joel Embiid's team. So for James, it's all about the trust factor that he's going to do the right thing, not be out hanging out, doing all that, getting your body right, and then the loyalty factor. Don't be getting behind Doc back and, with those hidden agendas, really wanting Mike D'Antoni and did what he did last night in the second half and quit on Doc Rivers.
All right, let's get to Doc Rivers. Doc and Daryl Morey spoke earlier today. Let's take a listen to that.
Can you assure the people of Philadelphia and us here that the head coach will be back next year?
Yes.
Okay, so
now a different question.
Okay, well,
You get one.
all right.
I just think he's a great coach. He's a great coach. I love working with him. I feel like I'm learning from him.
All right, so we just heard from Daryl that Doc will be back. Ramona, is this the end?
Listen, everyone I talk to in the league expects this to be one to watch. This is a situation that over the next couple of weeks, I think everybody will be watching very closely because, as you know, there's still 2 head coaching jobs that are open in the NBA, the Charlotte Hornets and the Los Angeles Lakers. Doc Rivers is under contract for 3 more years here in Philadelphia. It's a lot of money that's left on his deal. Makes about $8 million a year. So obviously Doc would want to coach and wants all that money in one way or another. So Daryl's saying the right thing here. I thought it was good that they had a united showing there. But from what everyone around the league that I talked to said, let's keep an eye on this one.
All right, Matt, Pat, and Perk, you all played for Doc for a combined 11 and a half years. So, Perk, I'm going to start with you. What's the best resolution for Doc in Philadelphia here?
To be honest, I was hoping Doc would go in a different direction. And for the reasons that I brought up for us with the James Harden and Daryl Morey, their relationship. At the end of the day, man, when I look at Doc, I don't know how Pat Bev and Matt feel about Doc, but with me, I watched him be loyal to so many people, and I watched Doc Rivers get stabbed in the back so many times. And this is, I just hate to see it for him. I just want him to be in a situation where, one, his players is going to have his back. He's going to be allowed to be the best version of Doc Rivers. And I would like to say this: before James Harden got there, it wasn't pressure on Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers had that team playing great basketball. Joel Embiid was playing at some of the best basketball of his career. To be honest, so I love Doc being able to coach Joel Embiid and their relationship. But I would rather him be somewhere else because I really just don't trust Daryl Morey and James Harden at this point.
Okay. Doc is a great motivational, give you energy type coach. I mean, the one thing that sticks with me my whole career was when he told, be a star in your role. Doc is great at these sound bites that'll get you going. But it seems like every situation he's been in, a few years in, there starts to be a similar narrative. Guys are starting to tune him out. Guys aren't listening. He's making too many moves. With the Clippers, he had like 4 or 5 different hats on, so he was trying to win and bring players in and sign players and do all this other kind of stuff. There seems to be the similar narrative once Doc gets somewhere that, the first few years it looks good and, rah, rah, rah. But then shortly after that, it always seems to turn out to the same situation. So I'm going to just leave it at that.
No, I'm going to add a little bit to that. I got totally faith in Doc. I think he's done a great job with this team from the beginning to the end. We're not having this conversation if Joel Embiid is healthy the first 2 games. Let's not jump too far. You know what I'm saying? All the stuff that he had going with Ben Simmons, to be able to be a coach in this league and go through all that and still be successful with trades, without your main guy, without one of the best defensive players out there, and still have a chance to compete for a championship. Your main player, he's not there 2 games. I mean, just take a break a little bit and give Doc a lot of credit, man. He's done a great job with this team this year.
Pat, you mentioned Joel Embiid. So for the second straight season, he finished second in MVP voting, but was also eliminated before the conference finals. So what can the Sixers do to keep him happy in Philadelphia? Take a listen.
Maybe we didn't have enough time all together. Maybe we just wasn't good enough. I just know that we just wasn't tough enough. At this point, we should need anybody to motivate us.
You still have faith in this coaching staff and this front office?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But the players also got to do their jobs. Everybody expected the Houston James Harden, but that's not who he is anymore. Là, je dois s'assurer que j'aurai une chirurgie. That's my guy. It's my brother. I still don't know how we let him go. I wish I could have gone to battle with him. Thank you, guys. Have a great summer.
Ramona, you've done extensive reporting around Joel Embiid and the 76ers. What needs to happen here to keep Joel happy?
I mean, the time is now, right? He's 28 years old. He's in the middle of his prime. He did sign a long-term extension with them. He signed a 5-year extension with the Sixers, so he's under contract for a long time. I know from having spoken to Joel, he wants to play his whole career in Philly. He loves it there. Would love to bring a championship there, but losing the second round, I mean, he gave a quote that reminded me a little of a Kobe Bryant quote that, Matt, I think you were a part of this team. Any year you don't win that's it. It's a waste, right? And, in one hand, he says, I wish Jimmy Butler was still my teammate, and I can't believe we let him go. And then very later on in that press conference, he says he's not the same James Harden as we saw in Houston. I mean, those are pretty strong quotes.
Yeah,
those are pretty strong, even though he delivered it in an understated way. Those are pretty strong quotes.
After a loss, though, after a big loss.
After a loss, you're right.
So you have to gauge the emotion.
Yep.
Gauge the emotion before we jump ahead again. I mean, I just think as anyone, you lose a game, you're frustrated, But do I wish I played with some of my old teammates? For sure, But is that the situation now? No. As a superstar, like he is, or any star in your role, my Barnes put it with Doc, you got to make it happen.
Yeah.
Simple as that. You got to make it happen, and he has to.
How do you process that with, on the one hand, thinking about some of those old teammates, because you've been in the situation, but also knowing that this is the group you have and you want to move forward with? What's the push-pull there?
No, you got to get better, whatever that is. Look yourself in the mirror first, see what you could have done. Of course, health was a big part of it. Getting James halfway through the season, him not healthy, again, helps a big part of it. Like Perk said, best thing he said was work on your body. And you just summon to work on everybody's bodies and come back to the round table and see how it goes.
So, Matt, knowing that, what say you?
I mean, I think Embiid said everything he was supposed to say as a leader of that team. You know what I mean? He didn't want to give anyone bullet material or take shots at anyone because they had a bad experience doing that last year with Ben Simmons. But at the same time, to me, he sounds very unconfident about management and the moves they've made. Obviously, I'm not the only one that thought them choosing Jimmy Butler over Tobias Harris wasn't a very good move. Then you get rid of all his shooting, which, Joel Embiid needs space. You get rid of the J.J. Redicks and the other guys like that. So I think, obviously, his loyalty, he's going to want to be in Philly. Philly loves him and would love to keep him. But I think management has to step up to the plate and really start building around him. Before they were building around Ben Simmons, and when Embiid has always been the best player on that team. So now you really got to start building around him and figure out what you need to do to put pieces around him to make him successful, because he's doing everything he absolutely can to get this team where they've been. Granted, like Pat said, injuries played a big part in this year's playoffs, but this guy's been a monster. He's played through a broken face and a thumb he's going to need to have surgery on. So he's done what he needs to do. They need to start helping him from a front office standpoint.
And obviously, we saw Danny Green as well last night go down with a knee injury. The Athletic is now reporting that he has a torn ACL. So tough
up, Danny.
for the 76ers. I promised 15 minutes. That was 15 minutes and 7